And then lastly, one of the things that Project H has been doing more and more, which has been really fun for me, and I hope for the people that were involved, we've been doing these global workshops and also starting a lot of local chapters. So this is just an image from a mobility workshop that we did in Melbourne with a school there, and looking at issues surrounding mobility, particularly in the developing world, and how to design tools for mobility. And then the chapters are, let's see, there's San Francisco, LA, New York, now Chicago, Melbourne, London, and India, and soon to be South Africa. But the goal behind the chapters was that, all of our projects to date have been international, and that's really great. And it's super easy to get on a plane and go to Africa and find like dozens, hundreds, thousands of design opportunities. But I think, the direction that I would love Project H to go is to make the case that, yes, you can get on a plane and fly to Africa, but you can also look in your backyard. And, there are a lot of parallels between, say, the slum community that we're working with in Mumbai and the homeless community in LA, which now is it's the initial project for the LA chapter. So they're partnering with a homeless shelter there, setting up this enterprise so that the residents of the shelter become the producers of these things, and then they're sold, and it goes back to fund the shelter. So the chapters, I think, are kind of the next generation of Project H, where it's less about us being approached by organizations overseas and serving them. That will always be part of it, but making the case that a lot of this can happen locally, and even making the case that it should always start locally. So next, please. And then I don't honestly know what's coming up next. I just realized. Oh, okay. So this is an image. This is like my transition. I want to just talk really quickly about some of the values, or I guess you could call, core values that Project H subscribes to and preaches. This is an image that I took in Cogatswani. The woman wearing the black shirt that says "Design can change the world." Her name is Clara, and she is the matriarch, the equivalent of like a mayor of Cogatswani. She's the community leader. Everyone adores her, and she's been sort of the person who has really rallied around the hippo roller as a tool for their community's development. So when I was there, I gave her this shirt. We make these shirts. They say "Design can change the world." They have Project H Design website. So I took this photo. This is like the day we were leaving, and this is one of the families that had received the hippo roller. So I took this photo, and then that evening was like flipping through my digital camera and saw this picture, and was kind of like, that's a good picture, but I kind of feel like a fraud. Like I just took this picture for a PR opportunity, and it felt very kind of I don't know. I felt bad about it, mostly just because here's this like optimism on a T-shirt, and I was leaving the next day, and it's not like I had solved any of their big problems, or Project H had. So it was at that moment that I started thinking about Project H as an organization, and beyond that, how designers can implement like concrete tactics and executable actions to be more socially responsible. So I started like furiously writing this manifesto, which was published on Core 77. I wrote it like from a hut in South Africa and then Uganda. But so it was published on Core 77, and in the manifesto, I sort of outlined these tactics or strategies for designers to be more kind of discerning and socially ethical. So I just want to talk about a few really quickly, and then I'll just let you ask some questions. If you can go forward. Okay, so function versus impact, and these are also kind of the core values of our organization. So we believe in impact over function. The image of the hammer is, a hammer is a tool, and my example here is instead of designing a hammer just for, its efficiency in driving a nail, if you think about its impact instead, which is longer range, it's more kind of holistic and thinking, all right, not how well is this hammer driving the nail, but, what is that enabling? My example here, which might be kind of a stretch, but maybe that hammer is being used by a Habitat for Humanity crew to build a house. So it's kind of an interesting distinction, because we're always taught, and going through design school myself, we're taught to think about what the immediate function is and what what it delivers on an immediate level. But in going through this Design for Education project and also the Hippo Roller project, we've been trying to force ourselves to think more about about the social impact, like the gender shift in Kagaswani, things that you don't necessarily anticipate or design into the form of the object, but that are really much more important than the function itself. So considering impact over function, longer range versus just that one moment of use. Next. And then ingenuity versus innovation. This image on the left is from the community in Uganda, and this picture was also taken by Matt. This is a little boy who had 2 casts on his feet, and his mother had fashioned some shoes out of tire treads. And on the right, these are the simple green toe shoes, also made from tire treads. And I just think that's like a really interesting juxtaposition. We tend to talk about innovation on like a corporate design level, and we associate it with firms like IDEO, and it usually has to do with technology and really kind of like forward-thinking, usually tech-based things within the design world, versus ingenuity, which maybe they're the same thing, but the way we usually talk about ingenuity is on a much more individual level, where it's about making something work for yourself, given the constraints and materials that you have at hand. So the way that Project H sort of approaches these two terms and the way that we bridge them is we believe in innovating for ingenuity. So at a collective level, we have to innovate, and we have to collectively come up with best practices to continually, use all the tools that we collectively have to be innovative. But we should do that so that our end users, the individuals, can use these things as tools for their own ingenuity. I did not describe that well, but basically, collectively we're designing tools so that individually people can use them to enable their own lives. Next. And then us versus them. So this top image is the New York Stock Exchange trade floor, and the bottom image is one of the main streets in Kampala, the capital of Uganda. Both super chaotic places. But, I'm actually curious to hear what you guys think about this, because everyone's talking about the bottom of the pyramid, the other 90%. I kind of have I don't know if I would call it an opposition, but I'm a little bit cynical about that term, the other 90%, because I think it's defined by difference. And sure, I mean, you can look at economic figures and you can look at statistics and very clearly define what that other 90% means. But going back to the Design for Education project, this is a perfect example of, yes, the Ugandan school, we can look at how much those kids' families make versus what we're making. But the point is that we're trying to design something based on our what we have in common, not our differences. And particularly because this project is rooted in kids and play and math, it's sort of an easy one in that regard. But I definitely think that it's kind of a fine line to look at, or a dangerous path to be looking at things so that are so defined by difference, rather than seeing opportunities in what is universal and applying those universal ideas to make them work in different contexts. Next, please. And then as sort of a caveat to us versus them. This is the school that I went to, actually, as a kindergartner. This is a public school in Northern California, and this is kind of the counter case study to the Katamba School for the Design for Education project. So this is like a really, really well-funded, primarily Caucasian, pretty well-supported public school in California. So it's just interesting to look at like the Katamba School versus this and realize, you can look at the photos, it's really obvious that they're very different, but it's the things that they have in common that we're looking at as design opportunities. And then beyond that, we're trying to redefine the way we're looking at design clients. So our clients are not necessarily the people that pay us. We're trying to look at the client, the design client, as the person that we're serving. So these kids in the Kentfield School are our clients, as are the Katamba kids. You can go to the next one, Sammy. Other design clients. This is a school in Kagaswani, the community in South Africa where the hippo rollers were distributed.